Okay.
Kelin,
Joe.
let's do it.
Let's do it.
What do you got?
Just out of curiosity, are there any words that you can't stand? You can't stand to say, you can't stand to hear, or even phrases, words or phrases people use incorrectly. What grinds your brain when you hear something?
I'm guilty of this, but I hate them anyways. All cliches across the board. I think it's intellectual laziness in order to go to the default. You know, like you meet somebody out, and we all say the same rehearsed things, and it's so like mailed in. Like there's no.
So you're talking
effort.
about a cliche as in like a nicety, like a something you would say.
All across the board. The nice ones, the mean ones, like
not like an
have some
expression.
originality. Yeah, I hate anything that you pick off of the what everybody says tree and you recycle it as some kind of response to you.
Like I have nothing to say in this moment. Let me choose one of the defaults and go with that.
It.
Do you have an example?
I posted on social media earlier in the week that I was going to try to go a week without using any kind of cliches.
I saw that.
But it made me more aware of how much we do this. And it's just maddening. And I can't pick an example, but I hear it all the time. I just roll my eyes when it happens.
Oh, it just
we just gotta
kills
be
ya.
like we have these imaginative brains and we can be original when we want to, but why we go through and just I don't know, the stuff that should use our imagination we don't do, and vice versa.
Yeah, like you almost wish, oh, I'm in this social situation and I have nothing else to say and I'm gonna mail it in. Can I not think of something else?
Original.
Something.
And that's the thing, like we're so disconnected. The reason we have to go to those lines is because we don't connect with other people on an authentic level. Everything is so rehearsed and fake.
Yeah.
That's why we go to those sayings, because they're acceptable, there's no repercussions, but there also isn't any connection.
Yeah. I have a good friend of mine years ago. We used to see what response we could give to somebody who just sneezed other than bless you. And it would we would just make it out like ridiculous. You know, sometimes one of us would sneeze and my friend would go, "Shut up." Like anything.
Use hand sanitizer.
Anything. Yes, anything other than bless you. And
so what are the, when we go through the rehearsal of saying those things, we don't expect responses to them. They just allow us to bow out of the situation. We didn't really care. Like, how was your day? Like, are you really going to tell me how your day is? Or are you going to say, it's good?
Yeah. Or if you walk in, hey, what's up? You don't really want them to tell you what's going on in their life right now.
It's a nicety. It maybe gives you a little shot of feel-good chemicals that somebody cared about your day. But they don't. They really don't.
So the next time I see you and you're like, hey, how are you? I'll be like, you don't really care. Why are you even asking? Is that it?
Well, for me, I really do care. But give me the short version of it only. If you go into a diatribe that takes a really long time, the setup is going to suck.
Give me the abridged version.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be offended.
Don't be offended if you truly say, "Hey, how are you?" and they're like, "Terrible."
But
are you gonna poke into that?
But my version is there anything you need instead of how are you doing? Because if you're going to tell me something that I can't contribute in or truly help, then don't tell me about that one.
So
right?
maybe when you greet someone, hey there, what do you need from me this morning?
Exactly. That's practical. And if you don't need anything, you're like, no, I'm good.
What kind of an emotional connection are we having today? Kind of thing.
Yeah,
is that
right.
it?
Yeah. What do we need? Hey, I'm willing to have a quick conversation with you as long as what you're going to ask has really low requirements.
And maybe if you don't have the time that day, don't even say, just say, hi.
Hi.
Have a good one.
I acknowledge your existence. Yeah.
Hey, have a good one.
But it would be real, right?
Yeah.
Rather than faking the fact that you're interested when you're really not, and giving all these, feelings of value and acceptance when it's really not the case.
Yeah, that way you could be like, hey, how's it going? And they start just verbal vomiting this thing, and you're like, no, rhetorical question. I don't really care. It's just being
but anyway,
nice.
back to the cliches. That's my challenge to everybody is to try not to use them. Have some original brain synapses and try to do the authentic version.
So there's no single word that you hate using or hate hearing, or a lot of people I feel like as of lately for some reason hate the word moist. I don't mind the word moist, but there are words I don't want to use.
Yeah, I'm a big like free speech advocate, which means that I pay more attention to things that people don't like because they need to hear them more often. So that we need to create desensitivity so that everybody doesn't get up in arms when they hear something they don't like. Because those words, they don't do anything. They don't hurt anybody. I mean, we have a list of words that you absolutely can't use because it might offend someone. It makes me want to say those words even more. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about like grammatical errors, or if someone is saying something or using a word incorrectly, will you say anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, especially in my immediate family. Like, I do constant corrections on how people present themselves and speak because I do that to myself. And, I very rarely go back and listen to a recording of things I say because I get hypercritical about the word usage, or if I was thought of a word but can't remember it and I'm searching and I use a worse word than I wanted to, really.
I've done that. I've heard myself use a word and later I will go Google it to make sure I used it correctly.
Yeah, for sure. And when I'm writing emails, I do more Googling to make sure that I got the right word in there and there's not a better synonym for it. So with having that kind of brain, I keep myself from that over-analyzation because I'll just be really hard on myself. Now, it's annoying when you tell people, how they should speak. And especially because if you look at the baseline of where people's education level is on word usage, you could spend an entire lifetime correcting people.
Yeah.
And how they do. And they keep changing the freaking rules. Like my big one, and people freaking hated me for it. Ending a sentence with a preposition was my big hang up. I hated it.
Yeah.
But now it's totally acceptable to end a sentence with a preposition.
Well, now, to me, I will say phrases or use words incorrectly knowing it's wrong. But it's like, to the ear, it sounds right. And it sounds more correct than the right way to do it, if that makes sense. Like the word nauseous. It's actually not grammatically correct to say, I am nauseous. I am nauseated. This thing, an item, is nauseous, but you are nauseated. But to me, to say, I feel nauseated sounds pretentious and
and that's
weird.
Okay, so communication is all that's really necessary with word usage. As long as you know what I meant, if I get it wrong, but I still communicated the idea, then we can leave that knowing that, that it happened, right?
Yeah.
But if the longer we do the wrong things, the more bastardized the language gets. And then maybe in 20 years from now, because we didn't put our foot down, the word usage is so far off from, how it was intended. There's people that study this too, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm going to reference Idiocracy. What happened there? What happened there was the slang and the Valley Girl and whatever became common.
Yeah.
So when you spoke not even proper English, this was just standard English, that they couldn't understand you. So communication. So you and I at a certain point in 10 years from now might have to dumb down our manner of speech so that idiots can understand us.
Yeah. And it's more, I think, than just, you've seen them add slang words to the dictionary, things will become a new word, even though it was just sort of made up or whatever. But yeah, I mean, look at how many times just over history language has changed and become something different. And so what's it going to be, years and years from now? And another thing that drives me nuts, which didn't used to, except my same friend who, we were doing the experiment with the bless you. He is sort of like a grammar Nazi, and he's incredibly intelligent when it comes to...
By the way, it's bless, not blesh.
Did I say blesh?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Did that feel good
It did.
to you? Okay, you're welcome. He pointed out to me how often people will incorrectly pluralize their last name. And now I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do when it's like at a wedding, or somebody will order a plaque or a framed picture in their house, and, if their last name is Smith, they want to say the Smiths. SMITH apostrophe S.
What do they own? What's
I was like,
the Smiths what?
Is it just one of your houses? Is this just your plaque? It's no one else. They do it incorrectly. And what are you going to do? You're going to correct them now? Now that it's up, it's hanging, it's everywhere. They ordered this thing. They got it made. Who made it for them and didn't double check that? And I see that all the time now, and I'm just like, He pointed it out. Now it drives me nuts.
Yeah. And you can go through every day knowing that there are people that don't even know that they're driving us to madness by not using proper.
Oh, yeah. I want to tell people so much. Christmas is coming and you're going to get Christmas cards. And people will incorrectly write their last name on this card. And I'm going to have to be like, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but that's not how you pluralize your last name.
No,
I cannot say anything.
So I have a couple of word hang-ups that I can never remember which word to use. Affect and effect, right?
Yes.
And so I avoid using those words altogether.
If I have to put it in an email, I Google which one
I'm supposed to use. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so, but I've kind of bailed on the sort of like the likelihood that we're going to have to fix this because when we've got sensors and we've got AI, things are going to be communicated differently anyway. Mm-hmm. So proper word usage are going to come in the form of ideas anyway. So the words that you use to translate it down to understanding is going to be really low. And AI is going to tell us what we need to know. When you can go around in public and see how everyone is rather than asking them how they are, that's way better. Because then you know who to approach, right? If someone's having a bad day, they're purple in your heads-up display.
And you're like,
stay the F away from purple people.
Yeah. But don't you think, too, then we'll just find another way to be annoyed by it? Like, you'll just be annoyed by the idea or the concept.
Of purple people?
Yeah. For example, there are words that I don't like to say because they gross me out. And I think they gross me out, not because of the way they sound, but because I then visualize it, what it is. And the thing is gross. For example.
Do it. You got it in you?
I hate the word pus.
Pus. Okay.
I can't even say it. It is so disgusting to me. I hate the word, and I think I hate it because I visualize it.
Okay.
So, many, many, many years from now, if we are all just sort of brains in jars and I'm not actually hearing a word, will I just get that idea and still go,
So do you watch those pimple popping videos?
No, God,
Lancing
no.
boils?
I can't. There's another word, that P word. Oh, there's a show on TV called Dr.
Pimple Popper.
Oh, yeah. God.
You don't like it?
No, because I think I'm picturing it. I'm picturing it and I'm so disgusted that I'm like, I can't even say it. I'm not going to watch it. Oh, God. Oh,
I got a new leverage point for you.
Oh, God.
Okay, back to the word stuff. So this is an annoyance of mine, and it happens in every specialization. Freaking acronyms that are unnecessary.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So in tech, that's all they do is create acronyms. In medical field, they create acronyms.
Military.
In business, military, these acronyms. And within your specialty, it's easy because you get to know them. But when you're talking to someone who's not in your specialty and you are using an acronym as if everybody knows what the F you are talking about,
yes,
it drives me freaking crazy.
Yes. Oh, my God. As a military wife, now veteran wife, I used to hate that. And I lived down south and my husband was on a military base for many years, and I would get to know these people, and especially when we were newlyweds or I was new to it. And all these other wives and all these other people would be like, hey, has your husband gone to CRPRO blah blah blah? And I'm just like, I don't know what that is. And then they would say it and I'd go, why wouldn't you just say that? Why don't you just, it's this course. Oh, yeah, he took that. Can we just use words? Why is everything a letter and multiple letters? Oh, yeah, I would get so frustrated. I started just telling people, I'd be like, you know what? I'm a terrible military wife. I don't know what that is. You're just going to have to use the words. Unless it was something really common, yeah.
So I think the reason that it pisses me off so much, because I think it's sort of like a paywall between normal people and your specialty to keep people out so they don't know what they're talking about. It makes it feel like you got to have a special pass in order to know what's going on. Yeah. And I think we create these hierarchies, and they annoy me because they don't have to be. Shortening words into letters, creating acronyms for things that are just as easy to say. I had someone this morning in a business realm said that they're going to do an MTGBP, whatever it was. And I'm like, Nobody knows what that freaking is. Like, okay, you're going to do something, but it's no more clear what you're about to do to me, right?
Yeah.
So we just wasted some time.
Yeah. You're like, now you've got to explain to everybody what you're talking about.
It took longer.
Yeah.
We talked about, like, as long as we can keep a channel of communication where we have understanding of two people, it's acceptable if you use improper grammar or the wrong word substitutions. But if you can't even give the idea with your acronym to another person, then it is a failed strategy.
So, like, for an example, if someone says, hey, we've got to keep our conversation PC. Would you have rather they just said politically correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So my conversation would be, I'm going to send you an email because I thought maybe you just wanted to have the conversation on your PC, right?
Yeah.
Now, not only did not communicate, it could be miscommunicated where I interpreted it completely different because we got so many freaking acronyms. Sometimes they overlap now. So which one did you mean?
Absolutely. I see that more and more. Yeah, where I'll get some information and my brain wants to go, oh, it's this. But then I'm like, oh, but unless they mean this, because it's the same thing.
So it's doing worse.
Yeah.
Right? We're pointing out how language is deteriorating to the point where we almost need that translative AI so that we can communicate the idea because we can't translate the idea into freaking words properly.
Yeah. And do you think it's just laziness?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Not people trying to just be more
I think,
effective.
again, half of it is the clickish part where we want it to be unique, so we make up words that other people don't understand because there's a little bit of power in saying, oh, I know something that you don't.
Yeah.
And then half of it is just freaking laziness.
Yeah, I'm going to make myself sound smart and important and make you try to figure out what I'm saying.
Yeah, and in business, in like your normal office setting, like EOD, right?
Yeah.
It's both a cliche now and an acronym, so it is a double annoyance for me.
Yeah. Now I'm like, do you mean end of day? Do you mean... Yeah, like, there's a couple of things I feel like... What was one I saw? Have you ever noticed... I saw this online recently, and I totally agreed. Do you ever see letters, like an acronym, but your brain reads the words? Your brain says the words?
LOL.
Yeah, like, or WTF.
Yeah.
My brain will read whatever.
Yeah.
Not
here.
WTF.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So might as well just say the words.
It's a little less acceptable, but it means the thing. But you can say it in, public, right in the company of anybody, and they're not going to be like, "Oh, you just dropped an F-bomb." But no, typically, you actually did.
Yeah,
you actually dropped it.
And I've been known to say, like, if I'm leaving, instead of saying, "Oh, I'll be right back," I'll say "BRB."
Oh, you don't do that,
Kelin. I do
Kelin.
sometimes. BRB.
Oh, you just hurt my heart a little bit, a lot.
Only sometimes. Only
WTF.
sometimes. WTF.
All right, next topic. We'll talk about Taylor Swift. I watched the debate last night. Did you watch the debate?
I did. Well, I saw the first hour. I think when they took a break at like 10 o'clock is when I went to bed. So
Taylor Swift is in this because after that debate, she got behind.
Made a post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kamala. And I'm thinking this is the stupidest thing that she could have done. Stupidest thing.
Yeah.
It is a zero-sum sacrifice where a person, like, we'll use the Michael Jordan analogy, right? Mm-hmm. Or not even analogy, the example. Jordan said that he's not going to publicly say where his politics lie because everybody buys his shoes. And I don't want to alienate somebody because of my beliefs. That's a smart, sound business decision, right? Why would you want to cut your sales in half by publicly alienating half of your customer base?
Yeah.
So Taylor Swift is a money-making machine.
Yeah.
Right? Every advisor that will ever sit in front of her, right? Unless she doesn't care about money, she doesn't care about it being a machine. I bet you everyone who's not Taylor Swift, from her publicists all the way down to everybody who makes money because of what she is looking at that decision with a little bit of fear.
Yeah, and I read the statement. I read what she put out, and at first, before like about halfway into it maybe, she does say why she is commenting. And I get it. She did say there is an AI-generated quote out there or something that is a made-up quote stating she is supporting some candidate. And she's like, that is fake. I never said that. And I want to address the fact that this is AI. This is not something I actually said. And then I feel like you could have just left it there.
Absolutely.
Now stop. But then she said, here's who I truly do support and why. And then even signed it with a little dig.
DFM. Dumb freaking move.
And like you said, she's like a gazillionaire. She doesn't care. She could quit making any money today and live a fine life. But yeah, I wonder, do the people that work for her, did they have any say in that? Was that advised or
responsibility
not advised?
to her fans, the people who make money off her. Every dependency on her career was put at risk because what does she get out of it? She gets zero things. I know she's an idealist and she thinks that she's making a sacrifice for a greater good. She's bought into the whatever political realm that she is. Obviously now we know what that realm is. But man, she's going to get nothing out of it, and it was just a bad move.
Well, and I'm kind of torn. When you look at it like this, I did see someone post and they said, I think Taylor Swift should just stay out of politics altogether and not comment. But then I sort of think of that whole argument of, I've heard many times people say entertainers are entertainers and leave it there. Don't talk about politics at award shows. Don't give your opinion about something that's been happening in the news when you're accepting like a Grammy or an Academy Award. It's not the time or place. I kind of have mixed feelings on that. Whether or not someone is a celebrity doesn't make them any less of a person that is involved in this issue. And I feel like on one hand, we want to say, well, discussions like this are important. Giving your opinion and having open conversations that are done respectfully are important. You don't change anything. You don't affect change or policy if you don't talk. So why is it because they're famous that they should be silenced?
Because there's two people. There's the person and then there's the brand. Right?
Yeah.
You are successful not because of your person. You're successful because of the brand that you built. Mm-hmm. Like Taylor Swift, before anybody knew who she was, what she believes and who she supports, right, is meaningless. Nobody really cares. Nobody would jump on her at all. But she's using and leveraging her celebrity to put her support behind someone, right? So if Taylor Swift, the person, wouldn't matter, that's really unfair, right? That somebody could take their mountain of influence and push it behind a political candidate, which gives them an advantage that they didn't appeal to the public, right?
Yeah.
They appealed to a subset. So that would be an interest. Just like if the NRA or another organization got behind a political candidate, you didn't go after the individual, went after their group.
Yeah. And I agree to an extent, like in situations like award shows and things of that nature when it's entertainment based. I'm watching that because I don't want to hear about politics anymore. I don't want to hear about people's opinions and all the fighting and all the disagreeing.
All right, as a consumer though, let's just say a place that you like to go, like the shop, have a subscription for. If the person that owned that company said something publicly that was completely awful, would you then take that brand and be less likely to support and buy from that product or company?
Am I going to boycott based off of something? It would have to depend on how awful it was. I mean, there have been products that I heard an owner or CEO or somebody said something. My first reaction is, did they really? What was the context? Let me get the fact behind this. And if they truly did say something totally out of line.
Simple answer, though. Is there a possibility that if someone said something publicly that was completely turning your soul black?
Yeah, like it was real bad.
And let's just say they said it, they meant it, they stood behind it. Would you as a consumer use that as something in making your choice to support them?
Probably.
Okay. So end of story is that if you're doing things publicly and saying things publicly, as polarized as we are, there are going to be people who think no matter how you defend why you feel like you are, they will no longer support your brand because of how you feel.
Yeah.
That is the true risk of what Taylor Swift did.
So if Joe Danier and Young Sound Studio became huge, famous, known worldwide, when it happens, and people listen to Joe Danier speak all the time, and they're big super fans, and everybody is supporting him, and he's got this brand, do you then feel like you have to be stifled and you can't say
Yep, I would
what
have
you
an
wanna
obligation.
say.
And
Yeah.
the best example would be like a teacher. A teacher, parents trust their kids with a person. If a teacher did something, would you feel like pulling your kid out of that kid's class if the image of what a teacher's supposed to be has been eroded by something that they say publicly or did publicly? If that's the case, when you're invested in it, right, then you feel differently than it was just, maybe you're not a Taylor Swift fan, and so whatever she says isn't going to make you buy less records or go to less concerts. But the people that are dependent on that do care because it changes the dynamic of how that. So if your kid's teacher, there's different levels. So if they were out partying at a bar and drinking,
You find
right?
them on OnlyFans.
Or OnlyFans, or they had a meth habit, or they were a big gambler, or something that they do can make you feel differently about them being in charge of your kids and would maybe affect how you felt about them being around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I said I absolutely see both sides. I would like to think that someone, as just a human being with basic rights, can voice their opinion on something like anybody else does. But again, I see what's behind it.
With cost. Your opinion comes with cost. So I'm all for it. The more people that are throwing their hat in the ring and sharing it, I'm saying from a strategic standpoint, usually that cost has to be aligned with a benefit. And there is zero benefit of having Taylor Swift sacrifice her brand for the sake of politics who won't do the same for her. Do you think they're ever going to go bat for Taylor Swift?
Oh, I will admit, it crossed my mind only for a second, but it crossed my mind when I read that. I went, wow, how did they raise enough money to pay Taylor Swift? Because I was like, do you think she got any kickback for that? Probably not. I don't know. But it did cross my mind.
It is politics after all.
Yeah, it is politics. It was pretty gutsy to take a side, no matter which side it is, in this kind of environment that we're in right now. And so any celebrity, I mean, I've seen multiple interviews from both Republican and Democrat sources of different celebrities speaking on their behalf. And I'm just like, I wonder what was behind that. Yeah. I wonder if they're paid to do that, if they are influenced to do that,
So mark it down that you don't want to hear any crybaby complaining about how people were super mean to her after she did this, because that was the cost where she alienated and made people mad. So she might say, yes, accept my decision with no consequence. And that's a really entitled outlook, that you wanted to make a decision and get mad when what I could have told you would happen.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. At the same time, though, it's a little annoying to me that when you say things like when people are really mean to her because of this. I know that is a thing. It's something we're not going to change. But God, wouldn't it be nice if I feel like the way she wrote it, it was probably unnecessary to choose a side and to release that statement. I did also see in there a lot of like, this is my choice, you make your own choice. So I would love to see people say, I disagree with you. I don't want to support your brand because I so heavily disagree, and leave it at that. But it's when it becomes mean, like you said, people are mean to you over your choice. Oh, that irks me. That gets under my skin.
But it's a certainty. It is a certainty that's going to happen because you have taken a polarized thing and you jumped in. Yeah. The only way not to is to recuse yourself. If you don't want to be a part of it, then you sit on the sidelines. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean, during the debate last night, I purposely, every time there's a debate over the last couple of years, what I do is I won't look at my phone. I don't even let my husband say anything. Don't scoff. Don't make comments. Don't anything. I want to watch this with my own eyes and ears and no one else's bias and decide what I am deciding. And then I will kind of go and look at comments and things. But I'm thinking in my head all these things I want to say and all these things I want to post. And then I'm like, why? Why? It's going to cause a fight. It's going to have people commenting and fighting. It's going to have people make hypocritical statements, and then that's going to drive me nuts. And
All
I'm
right,
just
so
like,
let me give you the example. Let's just put it in check here.
yeah.
All right, so we're talking about the repercussions of meanness, right? So someone gets mean. Do you think if you put Trump and Taylor Swift, both of them are going to have meanness? Is there either one of them that deserve the meanness more than other? Or should we, if you're saying like Trump gets a lot of meanness from lots of people, should we, put some pressure on the backing off the meanness and be a little bit kinder and gentler to Trump? Same way that we would feel a little annoyed that be kinder and gentler to Taylor Swift.
So sort of like be unbiased, treat everyone kind of evenly.
If we're gonna really say that,
Yeah.
let's share our opinions and treat with kindness. I think Trump would be at the front of the line as being the biggest magnet for the most amount of meanness.
I mean, ideally, yeah, you would want to treat everyone equally.
Does it annoy you when people are mean to Trump, though?
Not really. I think, unfortunately, Trump fights back, which a lot of people like and a lot of people don't like.
I'm paying attention to what makes people more deserving of meanness than others.
Yeah.
And do you think people are deserved to meanness? So meanness isn't like a principle, or kindness isn't a principle. It's a highly selective things depending on who's the person that thinks the meanness is justified. Trump is deserved of it, then we could be mean to him and we don't feel bad about the meanness that's happening. But then you can't pull that card as we're so disappointed with society when we're arbitrarily saying that some people deserve a little bit more meanness than other people.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing even with the bias with the debate, right? I'm cool with the moderators being a little, fact checking and, like being prepared to make someone fit in a worse light than another.
Yeah.
As long as it's uniform. Like you apply the rules evenly and nobody cares.
Kind of like if one person gets a really sort of difficult question and the other person gets a fluff question that is even worded kind of biasly. I did see that at least once last night. And again, I was trying to be open-minded. I am not super pro either one or super against either one. But there was one question and I just went, are you serious? That was so biased. You asked this person this and you asked the other this? Really?
But see, I'm a big believer in equality, not equity, equality, meaning that everything is applied to all people the same no matter what. And if somebody gets a easier time, harder time, then that's not equality.
Yeah.
And so when people say things, I just make sure that there's not a contradiction in their logic where they're free to apply it, differently depending on who they're talking about. I think that if we're going to say, okay, I believe it. I think we should be kind. I think meanness doesn't do anything except for create more polarization. And I think that if we had a principle of kindness, that we would fairly distribute that kindness on all people.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think if all politics and both sides showed nothing but kindness, they personally wouldn't get anywhere. We've mentioned this before, is I think we are meant to feel like we are more divided than we are. Not that we aren't, but we are meant to feel like we are more divided than we are when there are certain issues that I think both sides agree on, but they can't let you see that because they want to win. They want to be the one that has the favorable outcome. And so that is when they will just take shots at each other to get you to not like something rather than focus on any good or any unity, if that makes sense.
So, but if we were all kindness, right, then it would be the book Utopia. Do you remember the book Utopia?
I know of it, but I don't.
We'll just use it as more of how people have a relationship with utopia, where we paint the picture of the perfect civilization and how people behave, and if it were perfect, how it would stand, which it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the full-on entropy on the other side, where everybody's at war with everyone else, and it's always an argument, always a debate, nobody gets along, there's only thing meanness. Neither of those we can maintain. It'll always be somewhere in the middle. So if you're going to put like, do you want meanness or do you want kindness, right? In the places where kindness is doable, like in a political debate, when you're trying to figure out ideas, you need a ton of entropy because there's warring ideas and one of them is going to be better, one of them is going to be worse. Conversations where you battle of those, 100% necessary to get through those ideas. But the kindness of treating other people, holding doors for people, being kind on the outside, there's more value in being kind than there is a war about being kind. And I think we misuse them. And that way we have chaos in areas that should completely be peaceful. And we have peacefulness in areas that there should be some battles. There's people throwing hands.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't even it's gone to the point where both sides, when it comes to politics, Republicans and Democrats, just saying those words, a Republican and a Democrat, has like a connotation to it, has like words associated with it and ideas associated with it. And people butt heads with each other if they feel someone is one or the other. And that's it. When really, it's not Republican, Democrat. It's like the far. If you go far left, far right, the extremes, the whatever, that's sort of where you see these supposed accusations of they want this and they want this, when really you're like, no, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to give specifics because it's going to start a political debate, but like you'll hear things and they want to do this and it's so outlandish. And it's like, no, they don't. But that's an extreme version of it. So now when you hear Republican or Democrat, you think you are that extreme when you're not.
All right. So that observation sort of like you have the micro and the macro, and you're delving in the micro. You're making an observation of what's happening. The macro will be the full evolution of what that becomes in the future. And the slippery slope people say that just because a trend line is happening doesn't mean that it's going to have a continuation. I think that as long as the same energies are in there, it will continue on that line forever, right? Mm-hmm. So let's do this. Let's engineer a civil war. Okay. We're going to take what we would have to do in order for the United States to split into two groups. Okay. We'll name them Republicans, Democrats. Doesn't have to be that way, but we'll start off there. Okay. Let's just say that the principles on either side, there are irreconcilable differences between the two, which means that somebody has to win and somebody lose. So they didn't come to the table. They didn't hammer it out. They didn't concede. They didn't make any kind of concessions on beliefs, so that I can't live in the country when it goes and swings too far in one of the directions. So we need to engineer a civil war. What do you think is like the top couple reasons that would firmly split everybody into, right? Mm-hmm. It would be a binary choice where we know that when you're asked a question, you don't hem-haw in the middle. That's an absolute for you, and you're joining the team that is pro that. So give me a couple of them do you think that would create those camps?
I'm sure something having to do with money and finances and people having money or losing money.
Okay, so let me split them for you, and we'll waterfall this out. So if you split it on a economic thing, do you think the people in one group will be dissatisfied enough to fight and kill the other group? So let's just say we take anybody below $200,000 a year goes in one camp, and everybody above that goes in the other camp. We split it down. We'll make about the same amount of teams. Do you think the people in the lower group are mad enough that they would want to end and eliminate the people in the upper group?
Possibly.
You think so?
That's scary, but...
Well, we're engineering a civil war, so we're allowed to be scary during this exercise.
So, yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Economics, you got kind of a feeling where that is. You don't have to answer that one yet. Yeah. Pick another thing that you think would divide equally, and then I'm going to ask the same question about it.
Let's go with like the freedom to make your own medical decisions.
Okay, medical. So you take all of those people and put them in one camp. Do you think each are mad enough and there's such a separation that they would be willing to kill someone on the other side of that in a war?
In a war, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the medical's top. And we're talking about abortion, right? I mean, when you say medical, it's abortion.
Yeah.
The people that are pro-abortion, the people who are, anti-abortion, you put them on the playing field, and they hate each other enough that they would take shots, right?
The two extremists.
Okay, so the abortion is so far the highest aggressive topic. Let's name another one.
Let's see. We've talked about gun rights.
Okay.
Or arms, yeah.
So the gun people in one group, the anti-gun people in the other group. Well, this is an unfair fight because obviously
they're gonna need
in the
some
Civil
guns.
War. In the Civil War, if the no-gun people pick up one frickin' gun, number one, they won't know how to use it, and number two, the gun people are like, "It's over. We converted them all." So,
that was easy.
So that one would be the shortest Civil War in all time.
Yeah.
All right, let's name another one.
Okay, let's think of another one. What do we have? We have money. We have medical. We have why am I going blank? There's only about 35 ones to choose from.
How about this might have been already played out before, but how about white versus all other minority groups?
Oh, okay. Race. Yeah.
So do you think there's enough hatred on both sides that they would kill each other?
On the extremes, yes.
Okay.
For this exercise, I'll say yes.
Okay. Enough hatred there. So so far, abortion and race are our two most aggressive Civil War catalysts. All right. Intelligence. You take all of the smart people and put them on one side, and you take all the dumb people on the other side. Is there enough anger in those two groups that would kill one another?
I feel like that's kind of subjective, but sure. Like who's to say who's smart and who's dumb? I'm getting too deep.
Well, no,
so let's say
you can
yes.
create metrics. Like right now, societally, if you've got a degree, you would be considered smart. If you do not have a degree, either we can divide it in those two groups, or we can take intelligence and just do an intelligence test. If you above one score on one team, you're below.
And I know people are going to be like, "Well, some people are bad test takers," but
we can create the metric when we're ready for the Civil War and we're dividing groups. We'll find out the proper metrics that put dumb people in one group and put smart people in the other group. Is there enough hatred between those two groups that they will fight?
Sure. Yeah.
And take. Okay, so I'm going to call this middle aggressiveness, abortion, and what was the other one?
There was money. Like money, abortion, guns, which was smart and dumb, and
race. Race was the other one.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. What about religion? You divide. Wait, you went right to
because I know there have been wars in history over that.
You divide it into religions, make it equal. Is there enough hatred for the other religion to shoot and kill and maim and destroy the other side?
Yeah.
Most aggressive then is religion. I'm
Probably,
agree with you.
yeah.
So religion, abortion, and race are our top three.
Okay.
Do you know you could have probably made this list prior to this exercise and been right where we're at right now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so let's do the other side now.
Okay.
If you then concoct what would make a civil war to happen, now let's engineer it if you wanted to make sure that it didn't happen, and you take your biggest three potentials, race, medical, abortion, or religion. You take those and say, let's diffuse those top three because they're most likely to lead to a civil war. Now, first, you'd have to go after you divided the smart, dumb people. You want the smart people working on this problem first and foremost. But since we already separated them in groups, we know who not to ask how to diffuse the potential of the civil war.
Yeah.
Let's ask you, what would you start to do? What would your logic be in diffusing those three top potential civil wars?
Oh, man.
We're solving world problem here.
I know. I'm like, this is why we are in the position we are in, is because we can't seem to solve it.
Mm-hmm. The movie The Purge, do you ever see that?
I think I saw the first one, yeah.
Okay, so The Purge is basically taking something that's naturally occurring anyway and setting it up to get all of that stuff out of the way in a controlled deal.
Get your rage out.
Do we take those battling things and not necessarily put it in a auditorium for death and destruction, but put it in a combating for ideas? So if you've got, you're wrong, right? And we're going to debate it out, and I get to say why I think you're wrong. And then you get to say why you're wrong. Or do you think that creates the pressure cooker that then absolutely makes the religious war happen or the abortion war happen or the race war happen.
You're saying, does it happen based off of like the debate?
Well, the animosities are already there, right? And so either they naturally take their course and you get the civil war that it's almost assuredly going to happen, right? Or do you take a piece of the energy out of what's happening and try to diffuse it by letting the exchange of ideas let everybody feel heard and maybe dispel some of those anxieties?
Yeah, you'd almost want to sort of like take the two groups. They can talk amongst themselves. They can elect a representative to then go and discuss with other representatives, and sort of like too many cooks in the kitchen. I know you hate cliches, but
you just killed me inside.
But rather than so many voices fighting and arguing, coming to a consensus among each other and then narrowing that down to the smartest or the whatever that is then going to discuss.
Yeah. And then have those smart people in both of those groups know that they don't want a civil war. So you set the rule book is the goal of having this discussion is to make sure that we don't have a civil war. So what is so bad about how the other person feels that would make you want to kill them? And they say that thing in front of that other person. And then the other person gets to say, you know, what they can do and make concessions to try to stave off that civil war because of how they feel. And you just go back and forth. And maybe it's not a discussion. Maybe it's like you put, you know, the one religious group, you put a Christian on the blue team, right? And then you put the Muslim on the red team. You give them paintball guns, right? And whoever loses has to shut the hell up.
Do they like paper, scissors, rock?
We can do paper, scissors, rock if that ends up working. But having some kind of way to take the energy that would be a barrel of a gun and put it into some other analog so that they can get that out of their system, and then maybe we stave off the religious war, the race war, or what have you. Or do we know that we just let those things happen? Like, let me change it and take people out of it. We'll use the earthquake one, okay? So you know that there's not an earthquake today, but you know it's just a matter of time before you have an earthquake. Mm-hmm. Let's just say we figure out that we can walk up to a fault line and drill into it and create a mini earthquake, and it would make the big earthquake less. We take some of the energy out of the earthquake by having smaller ones more often. So there's consequence in having the smaller ones. Would you rather have small ones more often or big ones further apart?
Oh, yeah. Anything that's not going to be as detrimental, you would want to do.
So you would want a race war, but a controlled race war. You would have a religious war, but a controlled religious war. Let it get it out of the system without the death and destruction that comes with letting it build up and have the full explosion of the volcano or the earthquake.
So that may have answered a question I was, or I guess a statement I was going to make. Unfortunately, I feel like once you have narrowed it down and chosen these representatives, because it's people and irrational people maybe at play, unfortunately, that doesn't work because you're going to have someone that says, I don't care what my representative says, I'm not standing for that, and I'm going to go over and cause trouble. And then these people are going to say, well, I'm going to go over and cause trouble. Are you saying maybe have that happen rather than the two representatives say, we're all going to war?
Sure. Whatever form it takes. The overall goal is to remove the energy from the distance between those ideals, right? Mm-hmm. If you can shorten the distance, you take that energy away, maybe you get another 50 years, and maybe innovations will be better, maybe culture will be better, maybe when next time you hit it, it won't be so much pent up. If there's no release valve, do you think people are really getting less angry or more angry? That energy is ballooning. Mm-hmm. And if there's nothing to let the energy out, then it's going to balloon to the point where they can't take it anymore. And the abortion people are going to go after the life people, the race people. Can't you feel the bubble up when it's happening? Can't you feel it?
Yeah. And what's interesting is I recently heard about, somebody was telling me that, I don't know if this is true or not. Somebody said that they had heard there were people outside of abortion clinics with guns to scare protesters, So like the people with the guns are on the side of, hey, they should be allowed to have an abortion. And if you come and protest, I have this gun to scare you away. And then I think, well, if you're going to use a gun on someone, are you still pro-life?
Well, the argument doesn't...
pro-choice or... Yeah.
Well, and that's the ratchet up effect, where if you don't feel like you're being effective, you had a protest and nobody cared and there was no changes, you ratchet it up. It's the Britney Spears effect. Okay, so pointing out a contradiction within that math, none of it's going to make reasonable sense. We lost the ability to reason way back here. So pointing out a contradiction in that is saying that it's all going to be crazy, right? There's not going to be a consistency because there can't be.
Yeah. Hence why there is so much fighting around an election year, as we have all lost our minds.
Yes.
And nobody is going to just like be the logical thinker and say, why don't we do this?
But the Civil War is suspending all of the reason. You've already bailed on the fact that what you believe, that you think you're right and nobody else is, and nobody's listening to you and nothing's changing. Now I have to eliminate those person. So that... I'm going to bring a gun to scare off the protesters. It's just one step up from, having a civil conversation to making a sign and standing in the heat all day. The next ratchet up is carrying the gun. The next one's taking someone hostage. The next, and it just, it's a predictable pattern that will always emerge.
Yeah. It will always amp up based on,
until it pops off. And that pop-off, in its worst case, is that Civil War. But there are many pop-offs, between that, and each one is a little bit worse than the one before. All right, let's go back to the debate. Watch the debate. How do you feel that both candidates did in representing their candidacy for president?
God, I'm going to get flack for whoever is pro the person I talk about, but... And again, I'm saying this as someone who is still fairly neutral in this election year. I actually felt that Kamala Harris did pretty good. Better than I thought she was going to. I hadn't seen a lot from her leading up to last night. Obviously, everybody knows she hasn't done a lot of press conferences. She hasn't done a lot of public speaking before last night. And so I was sort of wondering if it would be a train wreck for her. I didn't get that sense. I did not get the sense it was a train wreck. I feel like she held her own. She remained calm. To the same vein, I kind of went into this thinking, okay, I feel like all Donald Trump has to do is not look like a nutcase. Just don't be childish. Don't be unnecessarily insulting. Don't be weird. Keep it together. And he may have this in the bag. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, in my opinion. I feel like confidence is quiet and insecurity is loud. And it very much felt like he was on the defensive. It felt like he got loud. He got defensive. It came across, whether he meant to or not, I think he said things that people took as being weird, and sort of almost made him take a step back, like, whoa, you're kind of nuts, which almost made it to where it didn't matter who said what about policy. We're now back to looking at the personalities and the demeanor and the way they are carrying themselves based off of actual answers. I also feel like there were a lot of questions not actually answered, which is frustrating. Like I said, I do also think there was a little bit of bias in what they were asked, and the moderators and the way that they handled each candidate felt a little biased at times. When people say things like who won the debate, from what I saw, I feel like I saw most of it. I saw at least an hour or so. I don't honestly know how long it went on. From what I saw, based off of what I know people to look at and feel, I think anybody who went into last night's debate already strongly supporting a candidate is still going to strongly support that candidate. Anybody who was real open-minded and real unsure, I think Kamala looked better last night.
Give a numeric rating to each one, scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, God, I don't know. 10 being great, 1 being horrible?
Yeah.
I feel like Kamala probably got a 7. Trump, maybe. From what I saw, I didn't see the end. Trump, I would probably place closer to a 4 or 5.
Okay.
And again, and I'm not saying that I am not pro either one. I truly have been looking at everything, trying to educate myself on everything they do, not listening to the smear tactics. If somebody says that somebody said something, I go see the context in which it was said, not listening to just BS that is spewed, but actually trying to go on policy. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times during a debate, they are so scrutinized off of things that have nothing to do with policy. It's how do you come across? And if we're going on how they came across, Kamala, I think, won.
Okay.
I feel like Trump looked a little nutty. At times. I didn't see the end.
Right.
Waiting for your rebuttal.
So I think this was one of the first debates in a really long time that was a traditional debate. If you think about what, the debate team did at a high school, they take a bunch of things that are going to be asked and they do a bunch of prep. They practice and rehearse what their answers are going to be.
Yeah.
They have so much material and facts and figures that they can speak eloquently, and articulately about those topics. And I think Kamala did an amazing job at debate prep. I know that she probably spent a lot of time in rehearsing.
Oh, absolutely,
those answers,
yeah.
okay? So from a aesthetic standpoint and how she did, I gave her high marks like you did. I don't think Donald Trump has ever debated or done debate prep ever. I think he's a riffer. I think he wings whatever he said. Anything that came out of his mouth was on the top of his head.
I agree.
So if you were to take who could be more polished for it and had the best advisors and the best rehearsals when it became president, I think Kamala did a much better job.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a dynamic president, somebody who doesn't need the prep and can make decisions in the moment, I think that's your person. Mm-hmm. And so really that's the only new information. We saw Trump being delivered an element that was outside of what he's really good at, and Kamala put in the perfect element for what she is capable of. I'm also with you. I don't think any new decisions were made based on those two things. What we had in Trump, everybody knew. What we had in Kamala, again, I think some people are going to feel better about voting for her, being that the polish took. Now,
right.
If 12 hours or 12 days of debate prep and she couldn't hold it together, then I know that it would. This was hers to lose, and she didn't lose anything.
Right.
Right. And so I think we're pretty much at the same position pre-debate.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I said, I feel like all Trump had to do was keep it together.
But the craziness, I think that was already built into the cake. I think in the ways in which he was crazy was already known by all, and so nobody was scared off by that.
And I think another thing that Kamala did in the very beginning, which I'm like, that was good. And I feel like we've even talked about this. When you go to debate someone, bring out what your opponent's going to say. He is going to do this. He's going to do this. He's going to do this.
Absolutely.
And of course he did.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that was good.
And debate traps. She set some good traps for his reactions. She knew his weaknesses and capitalized on those weaknesses. So her strategy was really on point.
Yeah.
Now, here's the only loss. And this was not because of either candidate. The one loss was and this goes to Trump. Advantage goes to Trump here. Trump is going to stage the next 2 months about the victimhood of the entire establishment being stacked against him.
Oh, yeah.
He now has ammunition about what ABC did. We're fact-checking him and not his opponent. Had they not done that and not traded their integrity to help Kamala, he would have nothing to say about it. It would have been just a loss, and that's it.
Oh, I have already this morning seen multiple interviews with headlines like, it was 3 against 1. Everybody attacked him. He was set up.
But they fell into that trap. It was the same trap that Kamala played when interfacing, that they said, Trump set a trap. Go ahead, make it biased, and then I'll run on that.
Yeah.
Try to take shots on me, I'll run on that. Try to put me in prison. That is his whole platform now. And you give him more ammunition on that, and he's going to go gangbuster with it. Why would he not?
That's why when I mentioned earlier that clearly there was some bias in the questions. I cannot remember exactly what the question was. Trump had just gotten done talking. And they looked at Kamala and they asked her something to the effect of, do you think Trump will something, something, something? To which, of course, she's going to say yes. No, actually, I think Trump would be very good on that. Like, you gave that to her. Of course she's going to agree with that. Of course she's going to answer this way. When I heard that particular question, I went, are you kidding me? Why don't you just hand it to her? You know, like, that was so biased. Yeah, so it's real hard to kind of, I don't know how you find actual completely thoroughly unbiased moderators. I don't know where you go.
Well, if you're not going to get it, you might as well, and I don't know, you read The Art of War?
No.
Famous war strategy. And Trump actually titled his book, The Art of the Deal. And I know, just based on what he does and how he acts, that he's a big fan of the strategies in The Art of War. And the principle that I saw was, if you know you're going to have a disadvantage, let the confidence of your opponent buy 100% into that disadvantage. And then you flank once they're too in-depth and entrenched in their mistake of going too far into what they thought was your weakness. You hit them from the flank, right? And then you take that advantage away. And I watched that happen. And like I said, if there was no bias, that was just an L for Donald Trump, and it would have been neutralized and whatever. But they gave Donald Trump a W because of that biasness from ABC.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. To me, it also felt a lot like, Kamala was trying to look like the person who's trying to stay positive. And Trump would look like somebody who was doing a lot of fear mongering and negativity. And it was like, it got to be where it felt like no matter what question he was asked, he would always come back around to the border and letting criminals in and what these criminals are doing, even if that had nothing to do with the subject matter they were on. And that got a little annoying to me. And I feel like she could use that to, But
she was in such that rehearsed cycle that she couldn't even take advantage of those softballs, not even softballs, the putting on a tee that he and he passed. I was, I kind of like what I would say if I were in that position.
Yeah.
And not one time did he respond how I would have responded, because there were some really easy left hooks that he could have thrown. Didn't take it because they were both in this weird cyclone.
And unfortunately, I think one of Trump's downfalls is his ego, to where she would insult him and then he had the chance to come back with an actual legitimate argument, but instead would choose to push that aside and address the insult, the minor ridiculous character smear, whatever. He would address that. It was, she said, people leave his rallies, they get bored. And he used the majority of his time to say, my rallies are great. Nobody leaves. Nobody's at your rallies. And I just went, oh my God, not important. Answer the question. Like, let it go and talk about what you have done that is better. That, he could have taken that to be something that was an opportunity to not show his ego, to actually come back on something or a policy that is better than hers. And instead, he's like, I'm going to not do that. I'm going to use my time to tell you why you're a big, stupid head.
Well,
is how that
But
felt.
He will never do that. His ego is his biggest strength.
Right.
It is in the ways that his supporters are supporting him. They like that he punches in the mouth. They like that he has big ego. They like his bravado, right? So nothing was minimized.
I mean, ego to an extent. There's confidence. And then
but it doesn't matter. In this realm, we're not trying to paint the picture of people who are awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Neither one of them are awesome.
Right.
So in our world, they could have done better, but at what expense? He just layered on his biggest advantage is that he is acting on his ego almost 100% of the time.
I just feel like he's got to be so careful. I mean, when he made the comments about their eating the family pet, I went, and I buried my face and I just went, are you kidding me right now? Shut up. Like, he's got to rein it in at least a little bit. Like,
no, he repeated it, which meant that he couldn't wait to use that line. He prepared.
We all knew that was going to go viral.
For sure. And even the moderators had a response to what he knew they were going to say. So that was part of the strategy. So you got to almost like tolerate that you would have done something different and watch whatever Frankenstein of a debate this ended up being between two people who nobody would pick to be the representatives for the entire country, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we can't be surprised when it's not the perfect image of what we would do if we would have the perfect candidates.
Yeah.
It was a train wreck, a dumpster fire, everything we expected it to be.
Yeah. Have you seen, I just saw something about this morning. This is slightly off topic, but you're a tech guy. Have you seen what people are talking about, the conspiracy theory about the Nova earrings?
Yes.
Do you think she was wearing earrings that gave her access to hear feedback and things like that?
As a radio person, when a producer is in your ear and you're trying to talk, it is the biggest distraction on the freaking planet.
Yeah.
I could not imagine her flow of her speeches and whatever. There was no pauses or interruptions. Now, if you'd have said that about Joe Biden, I would say he absolutely had something in there. He had so many pauses where he was waiting what to say.
Yeah.
Didn't know if it was just a brain hemorrhage or whether or not he was getting fed how it is to respond. If there would be an advantage to getting that, I mean, pushing on the limits of advantage, I mean, I would take the advantage if given the opportunity. But no, I do not believe that it happens after every debate. So we're trying to think of a reason why she did really well and it couldn't be her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
clearly she had somebody in her ear telling her through these earrings that she was wearing. And I'm just like,
so yeah, bone conduction is a thing. And if you put something, somebody could whisper in your ear and give you a reminder. So it's totally possible. Do I think that was it? No way.
How much stake do you put on someone's ability to, I guess, think off the cuff? A lot of people have been criticizing Kamala Harris because of the fact that they feel like she needs a lot of preparation before she speaks or acts.
If you're a figurehead and you can take the luxury of conducting yourself and practicing it, then that's an advantage. If your job is that you make quick decisions and they be the right decisions, then you need to be off the cuff and be able to riff. Both are skill sets that are completely different.
Yeah, because I mean, I see advantages and disadvantages of both, especially in this environment that we are in now where anything you say will be twisted around. Anything. I have heard these quotes that supposedly people on both sides have said, and I actually go and watch a video and see the context in which they said it, and it's an entirely different meaning than what someone else is twisting it to be. So knowing that, I almost want to say I don't blame her for wanting to be totally prepared before she opens her mouth because somebody will twist her words. But yeah, like you said, are you always going to be in situations as a president?
Yeah, you can't say, hold on, let me go
prepare.
Deal. Fortunately, they have a ton of advisors, and the figurehead thing is actually something I would prefer.
Yeah.
Do a figurehead and have smart people behind them, and then when they go in front of the podium, it's all polished and whatever, right?
Oh, and can we normalize something that is still not being done and it drives me insane? Why can't, I mean, I kind of know why, but why can't a political candidate simply say, if I come across new information, then I may change my mind, rather than either being accused of flip-flopping, lying, oh, you lied because you said this, oh, it couldn't be that I just saw more research and changed my opinion, or just not answering at all whatsoever. Hey, would you do this? And you dance around it and you don't actually. One thing that I actually liked in Kennedy was the fact that I felt like he many times would say, here's how I feel about this. But if someone has new information or better information or a new source or an idea of me to look, I will absolutely look at it and consider it. And maybe I'll change my mind. Why can't we normalize that instead of you've got to have this stance or you say nothing?
How would you normalize it?
Start saying it. Start using it.
No. Here's how it really works. They go to focus groups and they present two things and rate it as, are you comfortable with someone who will say something and follow through on it, or say something and change it down the road? So if you're like, I am pro-choice, right? And then later on, you get new information, and now you're no longer pro-choice. Do we want a leader who's just allowed to say certain things when you're voting for them, and then get new information and deploy completely different policies?
You sort of, I guess, trust would go along with it. Are they saying, oh, I got new information, or did they really?
And if everybody's constantly changing their mind, then my vote was wasted because now someone in the primary said something that appeals to one group, and then when you get to the general, you're all of a sudden like, wait, I thought you said X, and now you're going whatever. That pisses voters off.
Because then they're accused of lying. Well, they lied to us.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm like, not necessarily.
So they will continue to do it as long as the public puts more value in someone who will stick to it, even if they're flawed or whatever, versus changing their mind and going in a different direction.
That's the biggest thing. Like, when it comes to an election year and all the frustrations and negativity around it, rarely do I think it's because of a candidate. It's the public causing it. It's the public twisting people's words, being hypocritical, things like that. They want us to call somebody a liar simply because they changed their mind based off of new information. Which, like you said, could they actually just have been lying? Sure. But yeah, all these things that come into play, you could not pay me enough to be a figurehead in politics.
Yeah. So, and that's why the changes that you and I would like to see to make it a better product, we're the minority in this, and they, can you blame them that they go to a focus group, find out what people will do, and do that thing? So if you know someone should eat a salad, and you know that they want a hamburger, if we go talk to people and say, we're going to run a commercial for food, we carry both of these things. You're at a Super Bowl and you're going to eat something. What are you more likely to go buy? My hamburger or my salad? We want them to all say salad for principle. But then we talk to everyone and say 9 out of 10 people are going to buy the hamburger. And we're like, okay, well, we're going to go do the thing that gives me the best chances of selling more of something.
Yeah.
And everybody wants hamburger. Either we're going to die on the salad or we're going to win with the hamburger.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you see it on social media. Very rarely are people fighting over something like a policy. It's always, they said this, they did this, they said this. And I'm not saying they said this about something that actually affects the country. It's they said this and I found it to be outlandish or silly or whatever. And people just run with stupid things instead of things that matter, and it's so frustrating.
So that, like, in sort of like debate strategy, one of the top things is undermining the credibility of the speaker. So if you have somebody who says something medically, the biggest advantage is to take their credentials, where they went to school, what they've done in their past, and if we can undermine their credibility, the value of their opinion goes down with their credibility. Mm-hmm. And so what that does in the political realm is one of the biggest advantages to make your opponent be stupid, make them come from a dark place. And so, like I said, I don't think you can extract that from that. If that's a workable strategy where you can make Donald Trump into an idiot, and if you've done that, right, then you are participating in the ideal that says minimizing someone's credibility, not saying, here's your policy and where I think it's wrong. You could have a policy I even agree with, but if it comes out of the mouth of Donald Trump, then no longer the value of the policy goes down.
Yeah.
So that ideal, when put at a choice, right, that I'm going to go principle and support Donald Trump because I believe in the policy versus no matter what, I'm against Donald Trump, you get that end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think, too, because everybody is so extreme or going to an extreme side, that's so much of what this is people have already decided who they like and who they don't like, and they will defend that person no matter what. No matter what they say, what they do, they will find a way to defend it because they've already made up their minds, and that's what they're sticking with. And yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I almost just lost my train of thought on that and where I was going with that. But
all right, so last question.
Yeah.
Let's just say our civil war is boys versus girls. Who wins?
Oh my gosh.
And is there betting on this? Because I'd like to put some money on one of those two teams. Do you think the girls win? Girls have manipulative strategies, and they are more psychological. They can really play and play the game well. Uh-huh. And you have brute force, the strength, and that advantage. What do you think when it comes down to psychological manipulation versus brute strength?
I think psychological manipulation.
Are you putting money on it?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think that's sort of stereotyping. I mean, but that's a whole other subject. But if it came down to brute force versus psychological manipulation, I would probably put money on psychological manipulation.
Okay.
Why? What would
I'm
you
going
do?
brute force.
Yeah?
Like, you could blow a lot of people up with brute force.
You
the
could.
long game, the psychological, there's some setup.
Yeah,
And
it's a
have you ever
longer game.
tried to engage the stereotypical male? So the setup, like if you're not married to them and you're not forced into a room with them, they don't have to play. They could just blow you up. So I think blowing up wins.
God, this is just such a slippery slope to go down. But
Love slippery.
it would, how do I say this without
No, say it.
Getting
say
hated.
It raw. Say it raw.
To answer that question,
Yes.
honestly, I would have to see what each side looks like.
Okay.
Is it a bunch of attractive girls
It's
versus
all of
men?
them. So you have some grannies out there, you have some teenagers, like it's the full set. Or you can send your best warriors there. It might be less in number,
Yeah.
right? But if it's your prime players, right? You know what the guys are going to do. It's going to be full volume, given a chance to pick up a club and I don't know that men can do that though. There's a certain amount of men that would just like, I'm out. Like I'm not doing that to the fairer sex out there, right?
Yeah. I
It
mean,
would be a cool battle. Like I think I
Yeah.
would take it. Wouldn't be our most aggressive battle, and it's probably the least likely to have one happen. But it'd be most interesting in dynamics.
so devil's advocate, and
Yeah.
God, girls, don't hate me. There is sort of this stereotype that women could be maybe more emotional and manipulated in that way. Do you think the boys would have the wherewithal or the knowledge of how to do that or the ability that they could do that? Or do you think the boys would just be like, oh, that pretty girl, I'll do whatever she wants?
I don't think they would have to. I think there would still be so many tears on the girl's side that it would just create rivers and oceans, and they would drown from their own tears. So the boys wouldn't have to do it.
You don't think the girls could cry and get their way?
No, not in war. There's not a warrior that's going to be like, oh, the maiden in distress is crying in a puddle of her own sadness.
It's a distraction.
No.
It's a
No.
distraction.
I think boys are very superficial in what they're supposed to do. And if we have said, we hate you girls and you're going to die, right, that we're not going to fall victim to your manipulations.
Isn't there this idea of like Troy and how this battle was all over a woman? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. If women weren't the opposing force, then women can definitely play a role. And in fact, most wars are probably because of women. That was a total joke, but you're actually contemplating
I was
that.
going to say,
I could think of the
I don't
last
know
3
about
wars
most,
were definitely not about women. So
Yeah.
I know that to be true.
yeah. God, I'm going to like really think about that now the rest
Boys
of the
versus
day.
girls?
Yeah.
Less likely. You can think of the other 3.
It's the Beyonce song, Who Run the World, Girls. Have you ever heard that song? And the lyrics in that song? You should listen to it. Listen to Beyonce's song today and see if you're like,
Is it prophetic?
who does run the world?
It is necessary that we need each other. That
We
is the
do.
overall thing. Girls couldn't do
need
it
each
without
other.
boys. Boys couldn't do it without girls. We need each other.
Republicans and Democrats could not do without each other.
They need each other.